Ron Kuhnel, thanks so much for coming down to Has-Been today.
It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Could you please let the folks at home know, and the folks on the internet as well, why are you running for third ward seat on the Eureka City Council?
Well, I'm running for a third ward seat, but actually you're running for Eureka City Council. You have to live in your ward, but everybody in the city votes for you. So you really run for Eureka City Council. You just run against somebody else in the third ward. I guess I'm running because, frankly, Eureka's got some serious problems. Some of these are caused by national problems. We're in the middle of probably the worst recession since the Great Depression, biggest economic downturn in 70 years. It's put the city budget under extraordinary difficulty. As a result, they had to make some really hard decisions this last year. They frankly cut public safety back at a substantial amount, which was nobody's desire, but they've had to do things like stop cleaning the streets. I mean, things that we kind of took for granted are going away. So frankly, it's put the city budget in really great stress. It means a lot of things that we want to get done in Eureka are frankly more difficult to effect. So I'm running because I believe I have the ability to change some of that. I mean, frankly, these are serious problems, and they need some serious attention to be solved. And I'll tell you later why I think I bring the skill sets to make that happen.
Well, the city's facing what they call a structural budget deficit of over $1 million. Of course, there's a ballot measure that would raise Eureka sales tax to pretty much match the one in Arcata. You hear, of course, small businesses complaining pretty loudly about that, at least to me, that's really going to impact their bottom line. Do you think a sales tax the best way to fill that budget gap? Do you think other revenue sources should be tapped, or should further cuts in, if not public safety, other departments in the city should be made?
Well, regretfully, not only do I think that Measure O is necessary, it's not enough. I mean, I guess that was my point. Even if we pass Measure O, we're still going to have a budget deficit. I mean, that'll help a lot, but it would do a tremendous amount in restoring some of the cuts to public safety. You have to remember that that Measure O is a 5-year sunset measure. While it seems pretty onerous, and frankly it is, if it wasn't necessary, I don't think it'd be on the ballot. It's also on the ballot, so the people get to choose. There's nothing wrong with democracy. I actually kind of despair if it doesn't pass what we're going to be facing. So I guess if I was elected to city council, the goal would be to see that it does sunset in 5 years, and that somehow we didn't get all hooked up on that money and develop spending habits that would mean that when the economy will eventually recover, that we're now spending that money unnecessarily. So it goes back to the notion I gave you earlier. Over the next few years, the city budget is going to require strict scrutiny and some very tough decisions. And I can tell you more about that later.
Well, also on the ballot, of course, is Measure N, the whole private development of the balloon track plan, Marina Center, and so forth. You've been pretty critical of their EIR and the deficiencies in there, particularly about the traffic. Do you think Measure N's the right way to go? And if not, what would a full cleanup really mean to you?
Well, that's the complex question. Actually, when you're talking about the full cleanup, you're not talking about Measure N. You're talking about a separate issue. Frankly, I support a full characterization of the site. I'd like to see the toxics cleaned up to the maximum degree possible. I didn't think Measure N was necessary. I suggested that. It was a zoning measure. As a zoning measure, they were doing something that we could have done administratively, and frankly, I don't know anybody that would have been opposed to rezoning the site. It's already passed City Council. They're done with it. It's really now in the hands of the people for a vote, which is sort of an up or down vote. And frankly, I'm sort of in favor of an up vote. That's been a weed-infested lot way too long. I believe the litigation that's going on will eventually be settled. I'm really hoping it'll be settled in an amicable fashion, and that we'll get out of that with something that can be agreed upon and makes sense, and we can get on with, frankly, developing that lot. There's sales tax revenue on the table that's being lost, and we really need to get something down there in that spot.
One of your opponents has called for, as an alternative to Measure N, something along the lines of a master plan for the waterfront that would incorporate more of a public process into what waterfront dependents, either industries or public services, should be on that side, and other vacant sites or underutilized sites along the waterfront. Where do you come out on that? Well,
I'm definitely in favor of a public plan for the waterfront. That's, I think, a no-brainer. whether or not that would affect this particular project, I don't know. Public processes take time. If it's quite possible that if the public process is completed, then what we learn there would be valuable for maybe making future decisions. But frankly, I hope not to wait that long for the balloon track to be developed. The waterfront's there. There's a lot more still can be done down there. It's a jewel of Eureka, and so I'm completely in support of a public plan to figure out what to do with the rest of it, and even the balloon track part of it if it falls into that.
The council seemed to experience a rare moment of unity, staff, elected officials alike, saying this Forester Gill planned subdivision just beyond the boundaries of Eureka would have really significant, overwhelming impacts on Eureka's water, wastewater services, the traffic, and so forth. Characterized as parasitic on existing commercial development. We have so many empty storefronts, even more with the economic downturn here in Old Town on 2nd and 3rd Street. Why wouldn't those same arguments apply to the balloon track?
Well, first of all, the balloon track isn't remotely the scale of the Forester Gill project. I mean, it's one thing. The second thing is the balloon track's in the city limits. Sales tax that accrues from that accrues to us. So, I mean, you're not comparing the same thing. The need for sewer infrastructure is nowhere comparable. There's probably a remote similarity in traffic, and it's only remote. The balloon track project, which is what you said earlier, I kind of objected to, really failed to categorize the issues of traffic on local streets. And that's what I criticized. And frankly, I think they're going to have to resolve that, and when they do, it'll be resolved. And maybe the project will have to be changed somehow, or maybe they'll find a mitigation measure to deal with it.
Well, certainly it isn't building a subdivision on the balloon track. There's some live-work, second-floor accommodations. Obviously, that's not comparable. But as far as all the vacant office and retail space we already have in Old Town, why do we need more right now?
Well, the balloon track doesn't have that much retail space. I mean, it's got a little bit. The impact of the balloon track is probably more on small businesses that would be competing for the kind of businesses, the carpet stores and those kind of things that are impacted. Maybe not the large hardware stores. I mean, I think they frankly can compete and will compete. There's a lot of mom and pop businesses that get impacted by large developments like the Home Depot, for better or for worse. And frankly, that's the nature of the world. I mean, when something like that gets built, it will impact them. It would impact them if it got built in Fortuna. I mean, it doesn't really matter where it happens in Humboldt County. A store like that's going to cause some change to existing infrastructure.
In terms of public safety, Gar Nielsen's been on the job over 3 years now. What's your assessment of his time in office?
Oh, I think Gar's done a fantastic job. I mean, this is just like, eyes on. I mean, you can't believe the difference in policing. The way it used to be when somebody would break into your car or smash your window, they used to tell you mail in a form. Today they show up, they take a statement. You get personal service. They're doing more with less. Some of the major problems that cropped up under the past time were kind of out of control policemen. He seems to have really reeled in and changed the culture there. I mean, I am really, really pleased with Chief Nielsen's work as Chief of Police. He's doing a lot more with a lot less, and he gets my entire respect for that.
And the problem-oriented policing program, is that something you think needs more department resources?
But that POP program, or problem-oriented policing, is effective. It really is. I mean, I personally have watched them basically in my neighborhood effect change in some of the problems in my own neighborhood, and they will continue to do so. We'll be holding a neighborhood watch meeting in a couple more days. We hold one every 6 months. They send people from the police department to our meeting. They listen carefully. They go out, they pass that on to the POP folks, and they act on it. I mean, I think that's an extraordinarily effective program. I'm completely in favor of doing anything we can to keep that going.
And as far as how the public safety, police, and otherwise deal with issues of homelessness and also mental illness, and sometimes there's some overlap in those two issues. Do you think there's been a lot of advancement there?
The homeless issue is really, I won't call it an intractable problem, but boy, it is a serious one. We have homeless people sleeping in my neighborhood under, in alleys and under trees and in parks. And you have to remember these people are homeless, and some of them are homeless because we have a recession. They don't have jobs. I mean, the homeless population is up. We also have, problems with society. Ever since, years and years ago, when we closed the mental health hospitals, we've dumped some seriously ill people on the streets. These are the people that come out of the weeds at night and come out and, you know, smash in your cars and are, you know, sitting in their tents, you know, doing drugs. And these people are a problem, and, you know, they have a real problem in dealing with the really bad people. So you got to separate the really troubled people that create crime versus the people that are frankly down and out. And we have to take care of the people that are down and out. You can't just simply forget these people and hope they'll go away.
Of course, so many times you hear either the lock them up, the solution, the give them a bus ticket somewhere else solution, or the it's not our problem to solve, it's the county's. Do you think the city can do more to kind of break out of that paradigm?
Oh, absolutely. I don't care if you're talking about transportation, if you're talking about the homeless. The bottom line is that, and this is something I kind of criticize the city for, has to work more with the county in trying to find common solutions to problems. We share this area completely. You can't say, you know, gee, the county should take care of this and we can walk away from it, and the county can't frankly do what they please and ignore the city they impact. And so it requires partnerships, and it requires people willing to spend the time to go to the meetings and have the dialogue necessary to work out solutions together.
One issue, at least some suggest, is going to distract from public safety resources being, you know, paid attention to serious and violent crimes. This new smoking ordinance basically entails $100 tickets being handed out, even for folks smoking within 30 feet of their own porch of any entryway, any park, any farmer's market, any festival. Do you think that's an example of municipal overreach and of diverting resources, or do you think this is where resources should be spent and even could be a revenue positive?
Well, if that happened, I would say I'd be kind of annoyed. I wouldn't want to see all our resources spent dealing with people smoking. But it's been my experience that's not how it works. Most people will obey the law. They just need to understand that. So you don't really see a lot of scofflaws with the current smoking ordinance, which exists today. This just extends it. I mean, if I go into a bowling alley, for example, which I do occasionally in bowl, nobody would ever light up a cigarette in a bowling alley. In all the years I've ever been in there, I've never seen one person violate the law attempting to do that. So no, I don't expect that to be a problem. So.
Well, one thing some of the candidates in this election have brought up, and actually one of your opponents at his press conference last week was, well, there's you know, too much negativity and divisiveness on the council, and that's driving away some of the top staff members in the city. Obviously, we have city attorney, city manager, community development director, and so forth, all leaving or planning to leave within the space of this year. Do you think that's a valid criticism, or do you think a questioning, skeptical attitude on part of the council is what's needed?
Well, first of all, I don't believe that's why most of them left. I mean, it's an easy thing to try to draw a bright line between the fact that they left and the fact that they were being asked hard questions. But these are all highly skilled, highly competent people that, frankly, weren't going to be intimidated by that and shouldn't have been. So, no, I don't think that's why they left at all. I mean, do I believe, back to your first question, that divisiveness is valuable? Absolutely not. I mean, that is one of the things that I've frankly been very successful at. I mean, I said I've been working on these kind of situations, like as a planning commissioner, for 8 years. You absolutely get along with your fellow commissioners in a collegial fashion if you're going to get things done. You know, divisiveness, or which is kind of a terrible word, but you know, basically trying to create polar opposites in the debate really rarely gets you good results. And that's not my personality. That's not my belief system. I believe you get things done by working together. And believe me, that's how I would be as a city council person, because that's how I've been in the past.